A recent study by RBC found that 42% of Canadian entrepreneurs have a background in fields unrelated to their current business venture.
I had gone to Guelph, went for that, and that was, I would say, my first exposure to real estate as an industry.
What are some of the biggest hurdles that you faced during this transition? And also, what advice would you give to other athletes, who are considering similar paths?
So it's a big wake up call when people are getting out there in Toronto. Like I said, we're probably fifth or sixth industrial market in North America. We're a big deal here.
Don't be afraid to leverage your unique skills and experiences, even if they seem unrelated to your current fields. Hi, this is Kripa Anand, and welcome back to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast, where we celebrate the diverse paths to success in the Canadian business world. A recent study by RBC found that 42% of Canadian entrepreneurs have a background in fields unrelated to their current business ventures, highlighting the transferable skills and adaptability that drives entrepreneurial success. Joining us today is Bill Pavlopoulos, Vice President at Colliers and a former professional athlete. Bill's unique journey from the football field to the world of commerce, commercial real estate exemplifies the power of transferable skills and the importance of mentorship in achieving career success. Today, we'll explore Bill's transition from professional sports to business, his insights into the industrial real estate market in the Greater Toronto area, and the importance of mentorship and continuous learning in his career journey. Let's dive in. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Great. Really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
So, Bill, your unique career trajectory transitioning from professional sports to a successful career in commercial real estate, first of all, it's truly inspiring. We're eager to learn from your experiences, and gain insights into how transferable skills and mentorship can pave the way for success in literally any field. Can you share your experiences for all the listeners who don't know your background? Can you start from the beginning?
So, unorthodox background for sure. Originally started off back in 2013. We'll say that's when the journey started, where I was drafted to the CFL. Basically, start my first training camp. Wasn't a great student. Get to my first training camp thinking, it doesn't really matter that I wasn't a great student because I'm not going to need an education because I'm going to be a pro athlete. I get to my first training camp and rudely awakened, I'm going to need an education or I'm going to need some backup plan because I don't see this lasting very long. So I gave it, a good 5 years, bounced around a few teams, got a little too close to 30 years old and figured, okay, I really need to start thinking of a plan right now because I'm probably not going to be playing football as a career path. So at my time, I had originally gone to UBC on scholarship. There I was in psychology and kinesiology.
Wow.
Again, not a great student, didn't really do much with that. But I had remembered at UBC they had a real estate business program. Now, I wasn't planning to go back to UBC. I'm originally from Ontario. But I remember Guelph had a comparable program. So I had gone to Guelph, went for that. And that was, I would say, my first exposure to real estate as an industry. There was no real reasoning behind it. It's just I grew up here in Georgetown. I was surrounded by farmers' fields.
Right.
And then one day I came home from training camp or football. I can't remember exactly what it was, but came home and I slowly started seeing farmland turn into Amazon buildings.
Wow.
So I couldn't build them,
Right.
but I bet you the guys who were selling them had a pretty good living. And in my head, I was like, okay, if it's not football, this is what I want to do.
Wow. There was a fascination that you...
There was some fascination of just seeing dirt to these behemoth buildings where I was like, I got to sell those. And
Wow.
I, for some reason, thought that was the back plan. So I guess back on the track here. So, make the decision, hey, football is not going to happen. How do I get into the industry?
Right.
Where do I start? And if you look at our industry, it's very similar to, it's very comparable to banking or those other tighter knit groups where it's, it's alumni members either that are helping each other out, family connection, something like, it's very common in my industry to see, a father-son duo or, generations of last names going through.
Definitely.
I didn't have that. So I figured, where do I start? So I had a family friend that worked at a competing brokerage and had called him originally and just said, how do I get my start? He tried his best to try and get me in. At the time, as I was saying, I looked very different earlier before. I was saying I looked very different. I showed up to my first interview.
I'd love for you to describe one more time about your...
Yes. So I was probably, 50 pounds heavier. I had hair down to, we'll call it mid-chest, hoop earrings, rougher, more, we'll say I was looking for a Head and Shoulders campaign before going into commercial real estate. So I show up to my interview looking like this, and I guess that wasn't the fit for the industry at the time. Now they've changed. Everything's changed now,
right.
But
it's more inclusive.
Exactly, and it just more, I think, with the dynamic of after COVID, everything is just changed now. So at the time, that was back in the days where people were ties and shaved every day,
right?
Let alone a guy with this mane of hair and earrings. So
they were judgmental about it.
Yeah, so it didn't work out there. Right. So my next stop was, okay, how do I break into this? So I was looking for job postings at another brokerage, and essentially I saw that there was an agent there, Greek last name. So I figured, hey, you know what? Let me reach out to the other Greek guy and see if he has any advice for me, or even if he has a job opening.
Right.
I'm assuming he might have had a similar background as to myself, so let me go lean on that. It was the best thing I could have done was speak with him. He basically spent a good 10 minutes telling me why I'm not a fit for him to work with him, but what I should do to try and get in.
So he gave you like a direction.
It was the perfect conversation of, okay, this is what I think might be wrong with you, but this is what you need to do to get in. And it was, my whole life.
Real advice, yeah.
Real advice. In my entire life, I've been coached, right? So it was, I nothing personal, took it as coaching,
Definitely.
Took some accountability, on to the next step. The advice he gave me was, look at any person with a VP title and above, which funny now, fast forward a few years, here I am, one of those people now, right. But VP title and above. And he said, call them and explain to them how you can benefit them. Try and get 5 minutes of their time and see how you can impact their business. Right. And it's funny because I'm sitting here being like, how do I impact their business? Like, I'm trying to get a job with them, right. Let alone,
he
how I'm going to.
wanted you to understand that how you are going to be asset to them.
Exactly. And, you've got to get across the point of how you're the value add.
Right.
So followed his word, that's what I did. I went onto the website. I started looking up people whose titles were essentially, I started with the executive vice presidents and worked my way down to who would listen to me.
All the fancy titles.
All the fancy titles. Right. And that's what I did. I called, explained to people. I think it was something like 23 people later, which fast forward to today, it's kind of comical. I actually had the Western Real Estate Council, I think was their group name, from the university. They came to our office, and I was sitting on a panel, and they were asking, what was the limitations of getting into the business. And right. it was funny because fast forward to today, it took me 23 attempts to get in with a business that was full commission. You know what I mean? It's like it shouldn't have been that hard, right. But just, I guess it adds to the story. It adds to character building at the end of the day.
And these 23 attempts, and how much time duration was this?
It was probably over a year, or to 15 months, right? I'd come into the business around 28, almost 29 years old. I'd stopped playing around 27. So it took a good amount of time to get in. I was fortunate enough to meet who had hired me at the time, my senior partner, who now we've partnered and we've grown our team to 7 members. But
congratulations!
Thank you. But it's been a wild time into the business.
And I think a lot of listeners will relate to your story as well, because it was so real, and it is one of the most real backstories that I've heard. Now that was remarkable, Bill. It highlights the importance of discipline, teamwork, and probably you were able to take that advice because you already had that sportsmanship.
Oh,
Right?
exactly.
It's all
Exactly.
about the mindset, it's all about the spirit. Many athletes, they face challenges when transitioning to new careers after their
Definitely.
sporting days are over, right? Now, what are some of the biggest hurdles that you faced during this transition, and also what advice would you give to other athletes, who are considering similar paths as you?
So I would say the biggest challenge, uh, especially for athletes who make it to the post secondary level,
Hmm.
the challenge there is number one, you've identified your entire life as this one thing.
Right.
I would say that period where what next was some of the most challenging times of my life, because again, like I associated myself with this identity. I had no idea what
Who this
was.
person was
Yeah,
without the game.
yeah,
Right.
exactly, like outside of sports, it's like, so what am I, what do I do? And that fear is almost what I think pushed me into commercial real estate, because it was like I've got all these life expectations, all these goals that I want to achieve.
Hmm.
Um, to just go get a job, I don't know if I'll be able to achieve all these wants. Right? I need something that's not gonna give me a ceiling.
You
And
had bigger aspirations.
exactly,
Right.
exactly. So, number one, I would say that was a huge hurdle. Number two, my age
Right.
wasn't on my side, especially because I wanted to go and be a junior associate to someone. Most junior associates, fresh out of school, 22, 23 years old. I was not that, right. So that was another challenge. But the benefit to that was it when you went. It's challenging for a 22 to 23-year-old to book a meeting with a C-suite executive,
Of course. Right.
or an
You don't
owner.
even know how to reach them out. Right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So it helped me a little bit that at least I looked a little older, maybe sound a little older,
Mhm.
had some life experience.
We've all done that.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. So that probably was the asset in that it took a little bit of time. But the other challenge I would say was a lot of people looked at my resume as being empty, where I didn't feel it was empty.
Right.
A lot of I think there was this look on the fact that I didn't, I wasn't in internships during school, and outside of my time, like my full-time job was being an athlete. So to me, I thought I was best equipped
Right.
for what I was going into. I was like, there's not going to be anybody who's, more accountable, more coachable, all the positives that come with being an athlete.
Right.
And I thought I was, going to be the most transferable into an employee out there.
Hmm.
Whereas most were telling me, oh, you don't have a lot of the people that come into the industry, they get exposure to the institutional side, or banking in some capacity, or underwriting deals, something
Right.
they touch the industry in some certain way.
Right. And
Where
in
I was
Canada
just,
specifically, you need that Canadian experience as well.
yeah, exactly. So again, it was hard to, I guess, get that messaging across. But then fast forward to today, I think again, I'm best equipped with the tools to achieve where I want to be.
Wow, that's fascinating. Your story is a testament to, the power of perseverance and adaptability. Now, let's delve into the expertise in the real estate market, especially in the GTA, right? That is your
Yes.
focus area.
Yes.
Hi there, aspiring entrepreneurs and career changers. Bill's story reminds us that success can come from unexpected places. Don't be afraid to leverage your unique skills and experiences, even if they seem unrelated to your current fields. Embrace new challenges, seek out mentors, and never stop learning. Now, let's get back to our conversation with Bill and learn more about his insights into the dynamic world of commercial real estate. Now, the industrial real estate market in the GTA is booming right now, right? With strong demand for warehouse and distribution space, which is driven by e commerce growth, of course, and of course, supply chain disruptions as well. Now, according to a recent report by CBRE, the vacancy rate for industrial space in the GTA is at a record low, highlighting the competitive nature of this market right now. Bill, can you provide an overview of the current trends and developments in the GTA's industrial real estate sector?
So to start with the what gets overlooked, I guess, with the Toronto industrial market, let's
Mhm.
call, or the GTA industrial market, we'll call it. number one, we are still today incredibly undersupplied. And what most don't know is we're probably the fifth or sixth largest industrial market in North America. It's probably bad timing to reference the 51st state right now with what's going on, but we've been long speaking to that, especially with our American counterparts, because a lot of the times we were previously overlooked. And there's a presence by so many global companies here. And it was just, again, there were so many times where I would talk to partners in the States, and they'd be referencing a client. I'd be like, oh, they have a facility here. And it wouldn't be like a small position. It would be, 200, 300, 400,000 foot position up here. And they're like, oh, you know what? We didn't remember Canada. So I guess the big thing is, one, now I think it's been brought up to speed how big we are. Two, reference to supply chain, we're incredibly dynamic. The big thing with our market is if you look at us on a chart, from 2008 to 2016, we were relatively boring in industrial real estate. It was probably $5 to $7, and it bounced up and down. And all of a sudden, 2016 hit, and it just hockey sticked. And from the time I was in the business till about 5 quarters ago, if somebody asked me what the market rate was, the answer would change every time I talked to them. It was like, and it's going up.
It's fluctuating so much.
It was just constantly going up and up. Now, for the first time, we finally have gone down. And again, this was largely because of the supply chain model. COVID was a crazy time. Most businesses went from a just-in-time to a just-in-case method, and they just consumed space as fast as they could get it, and we could not keep up with the demand. Now we've kind of taken a step back. We're going back to that just-in-case method, and people are relieving space. So like you referenced, CBRE, they said, what was the vacancy that you had said they had mentioned in that report? Was it 5%, 4%? Somewhere that don't worry about it. I'm not quizzing you. It's just, it doesn't speak to.
We got this. We're not putting this in the final.
Yeah, no worries. No, I was gonna say, but it doesn't matter because actually the data doesn't reflect where we are today. The thing is, sure, it could say that we're at 5% vacancy, but what is that messaging? That messaging doesn't explain sublease availability. It doesn't properly evaluate the oncoming product that's about to hit the market. So the last 3 years, we've built anywhere from 12 to 15 million feet. That's a lot of space coming on. And then factor in that supply chain where we switched back to the just-in-time method. You have all these groups that are releasing square footage. So it's an interesting time in the sense of we're getting this wave of availability, but it's not being captured properly. So it's dynamic. I like to say, a client of mine recently, we're about to go through a renewal, and they're like, oh, like I just read in this report, we're at a 5% vacancy. I was like, well, 18% of that is in Milton. So we got to take out, I was like, are you renewing in Milton? No, we got to remove that. And when we really dial down to it, 10 minutes from Pearson, it's closer to 3% availability. So the numbers can get skewed so much. It's you got to make them work for you. But it's dynamic out there.
You also mentioned the importance of market research, right, in identifying valuable investments. Now, do you have any specific examples on top of your mind, on how to, conduct a market research? And also, has it ever helped you or your clients make informed decisions in the industrial real estate market?
100%. So the market research, the big thing that you want to do with it is you want to make sure you're informed in the best position to do what's best for your client. So a lot of what I do is large bay industrial occupiers. That was a very challenging business to be in when there was no space and the landlords had all the power. It was very difficult to negotiate. And like I was saying, how we were boring for so long and that hockey stick happened of our rental rates. It was a very challenging time to go for a renewal in a space and a tenant be faced with 3 times their rental rate and you get them down to 2.5 times their rental rate and you're saying you did a good job. Nobody wants to hear that. So the way you use market research, number one, people talk about what's the market rate. Well, what's the market rate for it? If all the product today is being built at 40-foot clear, can we say that market rate for 24-foot clear is going to be the same as that? No, we've got to start varying. We need to look at this at cubic feet for number one.
Got it.
Number two, is there any value add to the property? If there's additional land, transportation's such a key part of our business now. If there's additional land, there needs to be that factor on if there's a parking availability in there, if there's a zoning for outside storage, like these things trade at premiums.
Right.
Our new one going in, I would say our newest going into the future, what we're going to be looking at is power.
Right.
Everybody's talking about how they're going to be electrifying buildings, going green. If, depending on what happens in Canada, we're now talking about finally looking at trades east-west.
Right.
Is that going to cause some kind of increase to our manufacturing? Well, if that's the case, you've had people building in the last 5 years 200,000 feet plus
Right.
on maybe 1,500 amps of power, 2,000 amps of power. If you go back 30 years, I've seen a 25,000 foot facility have 1,500 amps of power. So these are all
huge.
exactly. So it's really on being equipped with the best information. Like we've looked at sites before, and a group of mine is saying this would be a perfect site. Why are we not here? Well, the reason why we're not here is because maybe it's caught in a zone of the 413 and there's partial frozen land, or maybe servicing isn't coming online at the right time that we need to be in the building. So you've got to be equipped with the best research that you get your hands on, essentially. And Colliers does a fantastic job of that. Having relationships with the municipality level,
Right.
or municipal level, is a huge help. Working with economic development officers to do labor reports, like you're wearing so many hats to service the client.
No, but very well articulated. We'll be right back with Bill's insight on the crucial role of mentorship and continuous learning in his successful career transition from professional sports to commercial real estate. Stay tuned to learn how these principles can accelerate your own professional growth.
Hey, you think you know UPS? Yeah, that's us. Everybody knows that. You know what you didn't know? This. Okay, try to keep up. Ocean, us. Ground, rail, air, so us. Guess who? Us. Customs cleared, borders cleared, done. Us. You still with me? Wait for it. Boom. Us. Intelligent, automated, fulfillment. Us. Yep, healthcare too. Digital your thing? Yeah, well, book it, ship it, track it. You feeling me yet? Yep, that's all us. That's all UPS.
At IHG Hotels and Resorts, we're in the business of you.
We're here to help you plug in,
connect and recharge,
make an impression,
and meet with confidence.
With 19 brands built for business,
your business gets even more rewarding.
With an award-winning loyalty program at 6,000 IHG hotels and resorts worldwide.
Welcome back, listeners. Let's explore how mentorship and lifelong learnings have shaped Will's journey from the football field to becoming a leader in GTA's commercial real estate market. Now, you've emphasized the importance of mentorship and, continuous learning in your career. Can you share your experiences with mentorship, both as a mentor and a mentee, and how it has impacted your professional development? I ask this because people often enjoy being a mentor more than the mentee, but often you learn more as a mentee. What's your take on it?
I prefer to be the dumbest person in the room at all times. Number one, that's
actually the smartest thing, because that way you absorb all the
You're
information,
always
right?
absorbing.
Yeah.
You're always learning. Again, you don't want to be the smartest person in the circle because it's challenging to grow, right? You're not learning anything it'll be tough to learn in advance because you're not getting exposure. So I prefer to be the mentee,
Right.
9 times out of 10 times because I'm sitting there and I'm a sponge.
Right.
Like the funny thing is a lot of people, and back to, I guess, what we spoke about with when I met with someone, they told me all the reasons why they wouldn't have hired me.
Exactly.
They couldn't have been more wrong because originally they're like, oh, former pro athlete, probably has an ego, is going to stick around for 3-4 months and take what I've taught him and then go off because he wants to be an individual.
Right. That's
Couldn't-
fair, thought.
Fair,
Yeah.
fair assumption.
Right.
I could see where he would have gotten that,
Right.
but it couldn't have been more wrong
Right.
because I'm a big piece of a small guy or small pie guy versus a small piece of a big pie. Like I've always thought the idea of the big picture. I don't know if it was maybe because I was a kicker and not a quarterback. I was never the star. It was either I did my job
Right.
and people were like, great, you did your job, or I didn't do my job and I got cut. And it was just that cold. That was really it.
Right.
I had one coach basically say, kickers are like taxis. I'll just go get another one.
Wow.
So I learned very young that, without accountability, most people are very expendable, as bad as it is. So it was like, really do your part to stick around. Sorry, I completely derailed off that. But so on the mentee side, why I prefer it, again, for, someone always talks to me about sharpening the axe.
Right.
If you're in a tree cutting competition, and they gave everyone a bunch of axes, you could get out there, you could start hammering away at the tree
Right.
and maybe, you muscle your way through it. Or the guy who spends 45 minutes to sharpen his axe
Right.
and then goes and cuts it down in 2 strokes. Like I've always thought, work smarter, not harder.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's why I appreciate being on the mentee side. So I feel like mentors usually help you. They've done a lot of the hard work, not all the times do you have to learn things the hard way.
Exactly.
And then on the mentor side, I had the incredible opportunity to have a great mentor who was truly invested in my success. When I first joined Colliers, where everyone else kind of looked past me, maybe thought that my age getting into it, I would have felt a lot of pressure just to kind of, hey, get in there, do whatever,
Right.
scrap your way through it.
Mm-hmm.
I was given clear instruction of what I need to work on,
Mm-hmm.
and it was, a bit of a slow burn type of game, but he wouldn't even call me by my name. He called me Roy for the first year, which
Okay.
stood for Rookie of the Year.
Oh.
And he was like, you're going to come in, you're going to be Rookie of the Year, and this is what you're going to do, this is what you're going to chase. Anytime I got off the lane a little bit, he made sure I was right back on. He's like, stick to the plan.
Hmm.
You know what you do, you know what you focus on, stick to it, it'll pay off in the long run. Fast forward today, I ended up being Colliers Rookie of the Year in 2021 when he'd done it.
Wow.
I've done, I think I was 6 under 6, so top 6 brokers under 6 years, 2023, 2024, and then recently Society of Industrial and Office Realtors, Young Professional of the Year. So
Wow.
it's
We're
worked
all
out.
very proud of you.
Thank you. It's
You've
all,
come a long way, and it shows, right?
Exactly. So it's
Yes.
all worked out. It's all worked out, and I think that has a lot to do with having a great mentor.
Exactly. I think mentors are like angels sent by
Yeah.
God, right? And they
Seriously.
come to you at the right time, whenever you need the most, right?
Definitely,
It's like you're manifesting them in your subconscious mind, and they just come out of nowhere.
completely.
On top of your mind, if you could just, give pointers on your fingers, what are some of the transferable skills that you got into this business from sports?
I'll call it. It's funny. A lot of the guys in the States, and I don't know, it's because in America they've got so much football. They actually refer to it as blocking and tackling, and it's really just the basics of, are you allocating enough time to your cold calls? Are you what's market research? What's dial time? What's meeting time? And they call it blocking and tackling, just the basics.
Right.
So I only basically know the basics because of sports.
Right.
If I went to follow a workout program and they said, we need you to weigh X and we need you to perform this,
Right.
and I had a time frame, well, I would break everything down into 4 to 6 week increments,
Mhm.
right down to, how many times I walked, how many times I ate, how many times I went to the gym, how many hours I slept.
Right.
So here I am programmed this way, and a big hurdle facing it. They're saying I have no work experience. Well, it's like, I don't think anyone's as dedicated or as as obsessed with the process as I am. And I think most athletes are given these tools, especially now with the younger age group coming up. These young athletes are being treated like pro athletes from almost like 10, 11, 12 years old now. Things that I spoke about.
Do you envy that somewhere? Envy the part where it was not so inclusive at that time when you grew up?
I envy the knowledge that they're being given.
Right.
I envy
the resources that
the resource that I didn't know about nutrition until I was overweight or something. Like when it was like, oh, I need to gain weight, and I didn't do it the right way. Here I am thinking, oh, you got to bulk. Well, I just go to Popeyes and eat a bunch of chicken. I didn't
bulk the fat part.
Right? Yeah, exactly. I didn't know that, like, oh, I should be eating rice and peanut butter or something like that, right? So the exposure to what knowledge is out there, it's endless. Like training programs, mobility, all these things that they now have this emphasis on, and how to be a more complete athlete.
Right.
The part where I don't. I'm definitely not jealous of the today athlete is, how much of them are able to show their talent now. If it's so regiment, how do you, there were some things I did have to try, and if it worked out, what a moment. If it didn't work out, it was a learning lesson.
Right.
I don't know if they have that same exposure to failure and creativity, let's call it.
Exactly. So I think they're the one who should envy you.
Yeah, there's probably both. At least I probably got a lot more fun stories than they do.
Exactly. That's what matters, right?
Exactly.
That's what makes life.
Exactly.
Now, as we come to the end segment of the podcast, if there's any one key message you'd want the listeners to, take away after listening to this podcast, what it would be?
That's a tough one. Main message to take away from this podcast would be, I would say, there's so many variables out there in the world that you can't control.
Right.
Become obsessed with what you can control. I can't control when a deal closes. I can't control if a client asks me, hey, we need to be in a building for the summer, and we started looking too late in the year. We won't be able to start construction because there's frost in the ground. Right. I have no control of that.
Right.
I have no control if tariffs decide to come in. There's so many macro things out there that you have no control of. But what I can control when I show up to work.
Right.
I can control what I do in a day, and I can control how much I learn. So I would say the big takeaway there is the things you can control. Be obsessed with that process, because a lot of the times there are measurable results from that.
That's very powerful advice, I'd say. One last question before we end this. If you were given a time machine, is there something that you do all over again or not do something?
Oh, that's
also,
another.
Which year would you go back to?
I would go back to... so personally, I would go back to 2009. And
okay, why is that?
How
old were you back then?
I was 18 years old.
Okay.
So personally, I'd go back to 2009. I think if I was to do it again, I'd want to go to an American university just to get more exposure out there, to see. I think going to UBC, not that it wasn't it was a fantastic experience, but there was, I think, a situation of, big fish in a small pond.
Got it.
Whereas to go to an American university, there might have been that exposure of, small fish in a big pond, right?
Definitely.
And here in Toronto, I think we're a big pond.
Definitely.
So it's a big wake up call when people are getting out there in Toronto. Like I said, we're probably 5th or 6th industrial market in North America. We're a big deal here. Right. So I would go back, one, just to get that exposure, maybe to just larger market feel, let's say, just because of personal growth. Professionally, if I could go back in time, I'd want to go back in time to 2016, right before those rates started to really go up, because
everyone would want to do that.
Exactly. Where I found a lot of success was trying to identify myself as a problem solver. When I got in, the end of 2018, basically 2019 happened, and then what happened? COVID. So I spent most of the time, we were in a vacancy of sub 1%.
Right.
And, I would talk to groups, and they said they'd have a problem where everyone else would tell them, oh, sorry, there's no space. Well, here I am thinking, like, how do I find this space? And, how do I all of a sudden solve these issues? Obviously, it's worked out and we're here today. But if maybe I had some more relationships, like if I was 2016, already a little bit more established, already a little bit more relationships, it wouldn't have been so much of a feeling like I need to catch up, and would have been more just ready for something like that.
Great. Bill, it has been a pleasure having you on the podcast. And, as they say, everything happens for a reason. And towards the end, everything works out and everything, gets better. And if it has not, then it's probably not the end, right? The story is still left.
Oh, definitely.
So thank you so much, Bill,
Thank you for having me
and sharing your experience and wisdom with us. Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
That was an inspiring conversation with Bill Pavlopoulos, Vice President at Colliers and a former professional athlete, on his unique career journey, insights into the GTA industrial real estate market, and the importance of mentorship and continuous learning. Thank you so much for tuning into the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. We appreciate your continued support. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more expert insights and resources that can help your business thrive. You can also visit our website, CanadianSME.ca, for valuable information and tools. A very special thank you to our podcast partners, RBC, UPS, IHG Hotels and Resorts, and Google for their ongoing commitment to empowering small businesses in Canada. Until next time, keep innovating and striving for success. We'll see you in the next episode. Kripa Anand, signing off.